Euclid. Euclid writes one of the most enduring books in all of human history. It is now, in our present time, 2,300 years old. It's never been absent since he wrote it. It's been present, whether in Greek or Latin, everywhere. And it has been printed more than anything else except the Bible. And since it was first printed in the 1400s, there have been over 1,000 editions of Euclid's Elements. So, Euclid and the Elements. Born in Greece, knew Athens, whether he lived there or not. He certainly knew it, probably lived there, and knew members of Plato's school. Nobody says he knew Plato because we just don't know. But if he was publishing his great book in 300, that means he was born probably by 350, which means he could have known Plato. But it's more likely he knew students who knew Plato. And from Athens, Euclid gets everything we've talked about tonight. So Euclid has all the heritage, all the way back to Thales. He would know Thales' theorem. He would know Pythagoras' theorem. He would know the whole mathematical heritage of Greece by 320. He left Athens and went to Alexandria, because Alexandria was definitely the best center of study in the world in that year. Alexander had endowed Alexandria with great wealth, and then his friend Ptolemy had continued to do so. So Alexandria was the number one city to study in the year 300. And so in Alexandria, he went to work and began to study geometry and measuring the earth. Now just think about the word geometrics. Just think about that word. Measuring the geo, right? Measuring the geo, measuring the earth is what he was doing. So that's as basic as it gets if you want to talk about abstract thought. That is, trying to take the material of the world, of the earth, the material we live in and on and eat and go into eventually, taking the material of the earth and reasoning about it, giving a measurement of it, giving metrics of it, and putting it all together into a model of how someone else could do it. So that's Euclid's Elements, which gave us the principles of what is, of course, Euclidean geometry. Here is the oldest surviving papyrus copy of Euclid. Now, aren't you happy to see this? You all remember Papyrus. Papyrus is coming from Egypt, and from 800 BC on, it means that people can write a lot of things. They can write down a lot of things relatively easily. Papyrus is cheap enough so that a lot of people can afford it and buy it. And so here is the oldest surviving fragment of Euclid's Elements, written in Alexandria, 300 BC. The fragment, written in Greek, was found in Egypt in 1897 and has been dated to meaning roughly 20 or 30 BC. So in other words, a couple hundred years after he died, here is a copy. Isn't that interesting to see what it looks like, what a papyrus? You can see the Greek, and you can even see some of his little drawings. You see? He's got a little bit of a drawing there. Nice little drawing. So, now, of course, he didn't do the drawing, but it's a copy of his drawing. It's a copy of his drawing. What does the book say? If you've never read Euclid's Elements, go tomorrow onto the web and just look for the text of Euclid's Elements and start to read it. Because you should know this is a book that's 2,300 years old, and, you know, we should all know something that's endured 2,300 years. Number one, definitions. Book one, definitions. He gives you definitions in book one of all the different things that you're going to use as you continue your geometry lesson. So number one, point is that which has no parts and no magnitude. Point. Does everybody know what a point is now? Yes. Yes. Take your pencil, draw a point, and you've got a point. Number two, a line is length without breadth. So there you go. Number three, the extremities of a line are points. Get it? Isn't that easy? Your sweet daughter is going to know all about this, right? Number 4, a straight line is that which lies evenly between its extreme points. So now you've got everything you need to get started. You've got points, you've got lines, you've got breadth, you've got magnitude. And if you keep going in his book, the whole of the geometrical world is structured for you. How you proceed, step by step by step by step by step. It's all there. Now imagine, for 2,300 years people had this book to start out their knowledge of how they might measure the earth. And that's, of course, exactly what they were going to do. Euclid is the beginning of one of the most important and most progressive centers of Greek thought. That's Alexandria. Alexandria is going to drive the steps forward in European and Western philosophy for the next 100 years or so. Ptolemy of Alexandria, and he lives a couple hundred years later, 100 to 170 A.D., in Alexandria. So in other words, you have a continuation, all that Athenian knowledge carried to Alexandria by Euclid, passed on to his students, put into the libraries, and now then the next generations, the first generation, first 100 years BC, the first 100 years AD, and now here we have someone who lives from 100 to 170, who is one of the most influential human beings who ever lived. Ever. One of the most important. And he can only be what he is because of Euclid, and he can only be what he is because of what Euclid got from Plato and Aristotle, and Plato and Aristotle got it from Democritus and Thales. In other words, everything we've talked about, it goes step by step by step. The Almagest and the Geography, his 2 great books. Both books are important, and both books are handed down through the Middle Ages in various languages. This is written in Greek, so he's a Greek language person in Alexandria. He's essentially a Greek living in Alexandria. His 2 books are both very, very influential. You have the page of his geography, so you have a sort of title page of his geography and a table of contents. And if you're tuning in and you're listening and you want to see these things, they'll be on the website tomorrow. So just go to the week number 6, Making a Western Mind, and it'll be right there. It'll be a little document that you just download. But you get a list of book chapter titles that explains to you how you draw a map, of the world. So that's what all these chapters are. And then you also have the text of the book 1 and chapter 1 with a description of the difference between geography and chorography. Chorography means the drawing of the map. So this is an explanation of that. But what's important to us right here is the geography, the book, the geography. And what the geography did as a book that then came down through all the Middle Ages and the Renaissance was give all of Europe from this date forward a book on latitude and longitude. Ptolemy summarizes and brings together several hundred years of research in Alexandria on the size of the earth, the relation of the earth to the stars, the location of places on the globe, our ability to calculate distances on the globe. All of these things are being investigated at Alexandria for 200 years, and it is Ptolemy who writes it all down in this book, The Geography. And this book will include a complete explanation of latitude and longitude. Now think about it. Think about everything we've been talking about here tonight. The power of abstract thought, which is the core of Greek philosophy. The power of abstract thought. What is a better example of the power of abstraction? What is a better example than latitude and longitude? Nothing. Nothing is a better example than latitude and longitude, because latitude and longitude organizes the entire globe. The entire earth upon which we live is now given this system of location. And once his book was published and became available, it was ubiquitous. Everybody adopted it. And it meant that people could locate anything on the globe. And in fact, once he had explained and drawn the meridians and given the numbering, he explained exactly what the location was of 100 famous cities in Europe. He put it right in his book. So London was at this, this, and this. Paris was at this and this. And Rome was at this location. Seville was at this and this location. So there it all was for people to come to understand that now with his explanation, doesn't mean he invented it by himself. He's getting the whole heritage from the Greeks. But with his book, it now became something that everybody could understand about the globe. Now remember, everybody knows the globe is round. So don't get mixed up in that silly flat earth thing. It's nonsense. Nobody believed the earth was flat. Nobody. Everybody know that? Everybody happy in this room, or are you upset that I just told you something you didn't know? Nobody thought the earth was flat. Ever. People knew it was, there may have been some tribe someplace who thought it was flat, but nobody in Athens, nobody in Alexandria, nobody in Rome, nobody in Paris, nobody in London thought the earth was flat. When Columbus went in his boats, he didn't think the earth was flat. Nobody on his boat thought the earth was flat. Everybody knew the earth was round. And with Ptolemy's book, Geography, they not only knew the earth was round, but they knew how big the earth was. They knew what the total measurement of the earth was because he had calculated it. He and his Alexandrian school of geometry had calculated, using geometry, the size of the equator, the circumference of the globe. And they came pretty close. They were a little short. They didn't make it as big as it really is, but they came pretty close. They were within 20%, so that's not bad. If you're just out in the sand in Egypt figuring it out. They did it all with geometry. So once people had his book and came to understand what the system was, then he also produced maps that showed the globe on a flat map. And included in this book helps on how to do that, how to make a map on a flat two-dimensional surface on a piece of paper of a three-dimensional object, i.e. the globe. And so those maps came down through the Middle Ages, and many copies were made, and often the book had with it a map, a big map. And when Columbus went to the New World and was on his ship and was sailing across the ocean blue, he had with him a map from Ptolemy's Geography in his boat. So think about Greeks, think about influence, think about Greek science and philosophy, and think of Columbus on a boat in 1492 sailing the ocean blue, and he's got his map on his boat that tells him this is how big the world is, and we're going to see India any minute. It's going to be just around the corner. As, of course, he told those men, no, it's coming. Don't get nervous. It's coming. We're going to be there any minute. Now, of course, he didn't know that there was a great big mound of dirt between him and India. But it didn't make any difference because essentially he was right, and essentially Ptolemy was right too. And the printing of Ptolemy's Geography, which starts in the 1470s, is one of the most frequently printed books in the whole list of books printed when printing is invented. It's one of the very first books with huge numbers of reprints because it was so valuable to people in 1470 and 1480. And remember, this is Aristotle, this is Plato, this is Greek science, this is Thales. This goes right back to the very beginnings. It's all summed up in the Geography of Ptolemy of Alexandria and his book, Geography, which you have a copy of, and I'll hold up for the folks at home, and we'll put this on the website right away, so you'll all have it tomorrow, so that you can talk and think about Ptolemy. His first name was Claudius. He's a Greek. He's living in Alexandria, and his last name, Ptolemy. Yes, that's the same name as the famous friend of Alexander, so he's descended from him. There were a whole bunch of Ptolemies in Alexandria by the year 150 AD. But one important thing, about Ptolemy. He's certainly the most influential geographer up to Galileo, and he's wrong about one great big huge thing. He's wrong about the universe. He's got the earth right, but he's got the universe wrong because it's his theory, which is the geocentric theory, that will be challenged by Galileo.